Are we live? Testing. Are we live?
I can't hear you.
Okay. Are we live? Can you hear me? Okay. Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going to be going over a new species of stegosaur that has been discovered, as well as a new species of early archosaur. So we are also streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. New species of stegosaur revealed. From Science News, paleontologists in China have found the fossil fragments from a new genus and species of stegosaurian dinosaur, Dinosaurus bahoyensis, or baoyensis. Let's see. So it seems to be, at least by the picture, more of a member of the Stegosaurini lineage of dinosaurs, at least by first glance of these two in the background. Though this individual seems to be more of like a member of the Kentrosaur lineage of stegosaur species. Let's see. This seems to be some type of an allosaur, probably a Yangchuanosaurus, which existed in the region during the early Cretaceous period, around 140 million years ago. And these seem to be members of the Mamenchosauridae lineage of long-necked sauropod dinosaurs, reaching well over 85 feet in length. They're pushing up to 30 meters and weighing somewhere around 30 to 40 tons. So probably having to take in somewhere between 3 to 4,000 pounds of food a day, or somewhere between 15 to 1,900 kilograms. The Yangchuanosaurus over here is like a 30 to 35-foot long carnivore. So reaching somewhere between 9 to 11 meters and probably weighing around 3.5 tons. The stegosaurs in this part of the earth, as well as this time, are not the largest to exist. These animals, varying, depending on the species, reach somewhere around 20 to 25 feet in length on average, or between 6 to almost 8 meters, and probably weighing around 2 tons. So this individual seems to be a much smaller species, possibly related to, well, I was going to say Miragaia, but Miragaia is a completely different subfamily of stegosaur. Could be a kentrosaur. Stegosaurs are known from a wide variety of different areas of the earth. It's usually North America that many are more familiar with, or at least certain people that have heard of the area in which Stegosaurus has been discovered. But different species have been found over in Europe, Asia, and Africa. So Bionosaurus bahoyensis roamed Earth during the Middle Jurassic epoch, about 165 million years ago. Oh, I think I messed up my time. I think these are probably earlier species of Mamenchosaur. So this is pushing actually early, late Jurassic. This dinosaur species was a member of Stegosauridae, a group of plant-eating armored dinosaurs that lived during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Stegosauridae is virtually the wide group of every different species of stegosaur, and not just different members of Stegosauridae, the Kentrosaur lineage, a few other different families of distinct stegosaur groups. So the stegosaurs first evolved somewhere between 170 and 175 million years ago, and would live until the very end of the early Cretaceous, so somewhere around 105 million years ago, when they mysteriously went extinct. Stegosaurs reached a maximum length of about 9 meters or 30 feet. They could possibly get slightly longer, maybe reaching around 33 feet or 10 meters, especially with the larger species of Stegosaurus ungulatus, instead of the next in line, or at least when it comes to size, species of Stegosaurus stenops, which is probably the species most people are familiar with. They had small heads, peg-like teeth, vertical bony plates, and spines on their back and tail, and hoof-like toes on all four limbs. Actually, let's bring them up. So simply, well, yeah, let's start with him first. So Stegosaurus, Stegosaurus. This animal was also discovered in different areas of Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. Colorado is also known for having some of the only footprints of Stegosaurus. Now, there have been a wide variety of different. Yeah, that is a grand depiction of a Stegosaurus. That is the largest head. This is virtually a ceratopsian at this point. But um, all stegosaurs had very small heads, much like the sauropods. It's very interesting. These are very distantly related groups. So referring to the sauropods, I mean the long necked dinosaurs such as Apatosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Argentinosaurus, and they belong to the Saurischian lineage of dinosaurs. So I'm focusing on the long necks at the moment. And they're very closely, well, at least the branch of dinosaurs, sauropods, is more closely related to the theropods, despite the theropods mostly being carnivores. Not all of them, but most were meat eaters. And very distantly related to the Ornithischian lineage of dinosaurs, especially members of the Stegosaur family, the Ankylosauromorphs, as well as the horned ceratopsians like Triceratops. Yet they, at least when it came to the Stegosaurs, you could probably even stick the ankylosaurs in here, but ankylosaurs did have larger heads compared to their body size. This might be um an authentic drawing or depiction from decades back. Though it almost seems somebody went over it. However, this is one of the. Is it?
What's with the head on this thing?
Well, it's not just the head, the feet. That is really weird. And then several spikes on the end of its tail. But I've seen that on certain earlier Stegosaur depictions where they added far too many spikes. And we already knew, like towards the very beginning, when Stegosaurus was first discovered during the late 1880s by, um, well, at least described by Othniel Charles March, Edward Drinker Cope, that these animals, this specific species, only had four thagomizers at the end of its tail. But for some reason, other depictions of Stegosaurus would add more thagomizers. There were certain other stegosaurs that were being discovered a couple decades afterwards. But Stegosaurus just has four, and there were other species that had well over eight different or separate thagomizers. So thagomizers, I'm referring to the spikes at the end of their tail, which were used for defense. It was not just for display to intimidate maybe other male stegosaurs or possibly even the predators themselves. These were um, very well used weapons. Stegosaurs, unfortunately, were not very quick. They did not have the overall physiology to be able to move possibly more than 10 to 12 miles per hour. And that might be even pushing it. But considering how armored they were and the different carnivores they had to deal with, as well as just their overall physique, yeah, this guy's got a bit of an issue. It's not as bad as that picture. Oh, I haven't been criticizing them. I'd say at least the tail is directly off of the ground. There should be much smaller plates as you hit the tail. They're very off centered on this AI model. You should have it where the largest plates are towards the middle of, like, directly in the middle of the back, but also having very similar size plates as well. There's quite a bit of a difference in the size. And even when you look at the other side, the plates seem to be completely off. And these are osteoderms, so basically reinforced bones on, or scale-like bones on the back of these animals' vertebrae. So it would be very hard for a carnivore or like species of Allosaurus or the Ceratosaurs that hunted the Stegosaurs back in the late Jurassic of Montana, Wyoming to bite one off. Probably wasn't even possible considering these predators didn't even have very strong bite forces. The sharp teeth that they had were really more specialized for simply ripping off certain pieces of flesh off of their prey animals. Not really for ripping off bone. That would be a very risky coincidence. Well, not really coincidence, just situation. But what is it? Oh, Also, there is not any evidence for blood vessels running through these osteoderms on these animals' backs. So, it even if it did break or one of these several of the plates broke, it wouldn't really affect the stegosaur very much unless when it came to the breeding season. It's just not very impressive to other females in the area, and he's just seen as hideous. I would say the stegosaurus has a very large head compared to his body size. Let's go back. So let's see. Stegosaurs are a minor but iconic clade of ornithischian dinosaurs, yet due to a poor fossil record, their early evolution is poorly understood, said Dr. Li Ning from the China University of Geosciences and colleagues. These dinosaurs are characterized by the possession of two parasitical rows of hypertrophy dermal armor plates and or spines extending from the neck. I have not heard of these osteoderms or plates is a more preferred term being referred to as spines. Maybe if you're looking at certain other groups of stegosaurs like the kentrosaurs, and you have those spike-like structures, and some might refer to them as spines, but not with Stegosaurus itself. So maybe with whatever species specifically they just found, which I'm guessing is that smaller individual in the picture that has the elongated spike sticking out from its shoulder blades extending from the neck to the end of the tail and have been found on all continents except for Antarctica and Australia. Yeah, that wasn't hitting me. There have been certain species of stegosaurs that did reach South America. The earliest stegosaurs are from the Middle Jurassic. They achieved a global distribution by the late Jurassic and subsequently waned in diversity during the early Cretaceous. There were still a number of different species of stegosaurs that inhabited the Cretaceous period. They just would have a less sort of a look like the iconic Stegosaurus. For some reason, they decided to evolve more spike-like structures along at least half of their bodies, and also the shoulder blade reinforced spikes would be a more common characteristic, almost as if it's because the carnivores in the area became a bit more specialized in weaponry. So, in turn, the stegosaurs also had to evolve more specialized armor as well. That was also at along the same time with some of the first ankylosauromorphs, but they were quite primitive even at that point. The different species of nodosaurs. The earliest stegosaurs, records of stegosaurs from the Middle Jurassic are rare, including only five species: Loricatosaurus from the United Kingdom, Isobarosaura from Argentina, Adrat Adractoclit from Morocco, and Huangosaurus and Bashanosaurus from China. The partial skeleton of Bionosaurus bayoensis, comprising a partial cranium, one cervical vertebra, seven dorsal vertebrae, and one caudal vertebra, was discovered in the Wangheashan Formation. Oh, let's bring up another species that is a bit distinct from specifically Stegosaurus. When Wenthodon, Wanthaadon. Maybe it's Panthanodon. Maybe that's what it is. Panthanodon.
I don't think this is it. Hold on.
It does have distinct spikes
It's
compared to.
definitely because this is not a dinosaur.
Oh,
It's a prehistoric mammal.
Panthanodon. Wonder who I'm confusing him with, but or at least what species of early mammal. That's unfortunate. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's bring up.
Here's what. Here's one of the things that's not it.
So it seems to be some Oligocene or Eocene sort of mammal, and it's also by Heinrich Harter. I believe Heinrich Harter was also an early 1900s paleo artist, so he didn't just work on different species of dinosaurs, which is probably what that other Stegosaurus depiction um, was from. He was going after or coming up with different depictions of early prehistoric mammals, which at the time were not often drawn. Few people, like even Charles R. Knight. Okay. Um, okay, that specific genus is just not hitting me. So let's go back to the article. The study area is located in the northwestern part of the Baoshine Basin, belonging to the Pingchuan district of Bayan City, Gansu Province, China. The Bayoshin Basin is at the eastern end of the Kylian Mountains, and the team's systematic analysis shows that Bionosaurus bioensis is an early diverging stegosaur related to Isobarosaura, Alcovosaurus, Haehunosaurus, and Gigantospinosaurus. And no, this is one of those species of stegosaurs that has Spinosaurus in its name, but it is not related to Spinosaurus. Completely different lineage of dinosaurs. Also existing much earlier before the first Spinosaurs even evolved. So let's see, what was the other thing? So I believe it belongs to the same family of stegosaurs that these individuals do as well. Dinosaurus bioensis has some plesiomorphic characteristics and is transitional in morphology between early thyrophorans and early diverging stegosaurs. The increasing diversity of middle Jurassic stegosaurs that also occupy early diverging positions indicates that it is likely that the stegosaurs split from their sister taxon, the ankylosaurs, early in the middle Jurassic or much earlier. That seems to be the case with the Eutherians. There was the incident where both or all of them had a common ancestors, also including a bit further into the family tree, but animals such as the ceratopsians and the pachycephalosaurs at the very beginning of the Jurassic, around 200 million years ago. And then later, by around 175 to 180 million years ago, you had the split off of many different groups. Okay, well, it's unfortunate that we don't know who specifically of this picture, at least when it comes to the stegosaurs, was discovered. It's a bit confusing. Oh, wait, Bionosaurus. Guessing that's him? I don't know. I'll have to take a further look into this specific stegosaur, maybe his correlations with the sauropods and theropods within the region of Middle Jurassic China. Okay, let's head over to the next discovery. So, new species of Triassic crocodile-like reptile identified in Brazil. Paleontologists have discovered a new fossil reptile that lived during the late Triassic epoch in southern Brazil. Well, this is interesting. It looks like a crocodilomorph at first glance, but it's very possible that this species of reptile and likely a member of the Archosauromorph lineage. The question is, what branch did it derive from? Who is this? Stenoscalidae arontiacus roamed our home planet approximately 227 million years ago.
Well, that's nice. I guess it wasn't roaming someone else's home planet.
Yeah, we are grateful to have him. So this Earthling inhabited the mid-Triassic period. So this is around 10 million years after the first dinosaurs first evolved. But even at this point, many were quite small. There were certain species reaching around 20 feet at this point, or pushing 6 meters, and maybe a little more than 1,700 pounds, or pushing over 800 kilograms. But for the most part, they were quite small. The question is, how large is this individual? He could be quite small and it's just not noticeable at this point. He does seem to have a very large, just persona about him. The ancient reptile belonged to Proterocampsidae. Oh, this is probably a small species. Considering most members of the Proterocampsidae lineage of Archosauromorphs were tiny and skinny as well. This animal actually has a bit of muscle on him. Um, Looks relatively large too. He could be the largest species that has been discovered so far.
Maybe it's
He
just blubber.
could be, but he is very skinny at this point. I'm very concerned. Also, I don't know at this point what animals would have. Well, there could have been certain ichthyosaurs that might have had blubber at this point in mid Triassic. I just don't know of any in which we have evidence for that occurring. I know in later in the Jurassic period, around 165 million years ago, there is evidence for different species of marine ichthyosaurs, so the dolphin-like reptiles having blubber. Well, let's see. I wonder if this was specifically like a fish eater. They didn't exactly. The Proterocampsids. They are close relatives of the crocodilomorphs, a bit more distantly related to the dinosaurs, but they seem to all have quite thin and narrow snouts. These creatures had okay, so a large family of extinct reptiles that were endemic to South America. These creatures had a crocodile-like appearance and most likely filled an ecological niche similar to modern crocodiles. Characterized by an elongated snout, Proterocampsids are carnivorous, non-archosaur forms. I think what it's referring to is that it's not necessarily a true archosaur in certain circumstances. It's almost like when referring to the titanosaurs and a wide variety of different species of long-necked dinosaurs or long-necked sauropods are members of the titanosaur morph lineage, but they aren't true titanosaurs or members of Titanosauridae. Brachiosaurus, for instance, the species of dinosaur that was found over in Colorado back in 1903 by paleontologist Elmore S. Riggs, is a member of the Titanosaur lineage of sauropod dinosaurs, but it is specifically a member of Brachiosauridae and not Titanosauridae. Also, due to the fact that Titanosauridae would not evolve until the beginning of the Cretaceous, around 140 million years ago. So, when referring to this archosaur, it is an archosaur form. It's not just a true member of another archosaur morph or archosaur lineage. Um, the unfortunate thing about the Proterocampsids is that they first evolved somewhere around 240 million years ago, but then when mysteriously go extinct before even the Triassic ended. This seems to have occurred with many lineages of archosaurs that existed back in the Triassic period, as well as different marine reptiles. With like before even the major Triassic Jurassic shift, they just disappeared a few million years beforehand. It could be due to maybe a major cooling event that occurred towards the end of the late Triassic. Whereas the dinosaurs benefited, these animals had trouble adapting to cooler weather and probably a major change in the ecology of the landscape as well. So characterized I said that. So said Federal de Santa Maria paleontologist Rodrigo Tempmuller and colleagues. The clade is endemic to South America, and its fossil record extends from the early Carnian to the late Carnian slash early Norian of the Triassic period. It's probably referring to that specific area in time. So somewhere around 240 million years ago to about 205 million years ago. Nesting close to Archosauridae, it is a key clade for understanding the origin and evolution of Archosaurian traits. Unfortunately, hind limb elements are usually poorly preserved for the group. Therefore, the hind limb anatomy of Proterocampsids still lacks detailed descriptions. Okay, let's look up a another. Well, this is actually a crocodilomorph, Sebecus, Sebecus. This animal existed much later in time. In fact, this was after the dinosaurs went extinct. This was somewhere around 60 million years ago. So, around 6 million years after the end of the Mesozoic era, the end of the Cretaceous period, as well as the dinosaur era. And it was one of the larger species of um, s- Sebecids, crocodilomorphs that existed during the Paleocene epoch and in different areas of Brazil, as well as Uruguay, Paraguay. This animal was somewhere around 10 feet in length. There were 3 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 350 pounds or a little over 150 kilograms and was likely feeding on some of the earliest species of large mammals to exist on land. So different early relatives of today's elephants, as well as different early relatives of today's sloths, and possibly bison as well, and maybe even any primates that happen to come to the forest floor.
Well, this picture isn't big, but I liked it.
Many members of the Sebecid lineage of crocodilomorphs during the early Cenozoic era were very agile. So these animals had the ability to run down their prey in many instances. Many also were not aquatic or even semi-aquatic. For some reason, in evolution, they decide to simply stay mostly terrestrial, so just simply inhabiting the land. So it's like the dinosaurs they had gone extinct, but their crocodile-morph relatives still were majorly the top predators. This is a pretty good model of a Sebekis. What's this by Manu Sukas? And as you can tell, this is a very distinct skull structure compared to any species of crocodilian today.
Wait, I found a funny one.
Yeah, it's like somebody took an axolotl and then made it into a crocodile dragon. Guessing he's just never mind. Let's see.
Most
What
of the pictures for him are his head.
I think because for the most part, I think that's one of the few areas of Sebekis that we have actually discovered is the skull. This animal did have a robust bite force. This is yeah, it's not an animal that's really just meant for going in and ripping off chunks of flesh. This is something that's able to crush bone, similar to different species of dinosaurs like the abelisaurs as well as the tyrannosaurs. Even certain large species of raptor were capable of crushing bone to an extent. Let's see. There was another species, but I guess a little further into the article and we'll bring him up. So we have a full intact femur bone as well as a shin bone. Well, that's not bad, but it is very unfortunate that we didn't find anything of the skull. Rio Grande do Sul definitely has a wide variety of Triassic specimens, both when it comes to different lineages of dinosaurs, different types of crocodilomorphs, and even later into the Mesozoic era. So let's see. The nearly complete and well preserved right hind limb of the new Proterocampsid species was found at the Varzea do Agudo site in the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul. Proterocampsids are rare in the late Triassic sediments of Brazil when compared to those of Argentina. Yeah, that is odd how that will occur. This isn't the only lineage of Archosauromorphs for this to happen. This can happen in a wide variety of different lineages of dinosaurs too, where in one country in different fossil formations they can be quite abundant, and in the next door or the neighboring country they are nearly non-existent, despite inhabiting that area at the same time. So you could be referring to a species of large carnivorous theropod dinosaur during the early Cretaceous around 110 million years ago. In some area of Texas and over in neighboring Oklahoma in the same sediment, it's just simply not found there. That is not to confuse certain neighboring countries and their different formations, just overall geological areas, because even though you can find, per se, let's look at it like Acrocanthosaurus in north, like northeastern Texas. So well, I guess you could say it's like north central Texas, just south of the Dallas Fort Worth area. You are not going to find the same geological sediment over in Louisiana because it's much younger. And for a long period, much of Louisiana was underwater until virtually the last 1 to 2 million years, until the Pleistocene or the Ice Age occurred. Okay, let's see. Let's look up Marianosuchus. So Mareannusuchus. Did he appear? Should be a species. That's not him. Marasuchus seems to be some early species of the Archosauromorph lineage, but it's not. It's another. It's not a Sebekid. It is a related lineage of crocodilomorphs.
Okay, yeah, I got it. But the only pictures I'm getting are all current. I'm getting caimans. And
He's very distinct from a caiman. He is related. The fam Yeah, it's not him. Now, the family of crocodilomorphs that I'm referring to, of this specific species of um, later Archosauromorph, first evolved somewhere around 167 million years ago during the Jurassic, but they would live on till about 3 million years ago during the late Pliocene epoch. I wonder what species of caiman this could be.
it says Melanosuchus, Niger.
That's supposed to be Melanosuchus?
It says largest caiman in the world.
I'm guessing he might be. Gosh, I mean, if that's him, that is extremely alligator-like, and he is not a member of Alligator-toridae, even though the family of crocodilomorph specific subfamily, I believe of Parasaurae, existed somewhere around 95 million years ago, during the first 5 million years of the late Cretaceous period. But Alligator-toridae doesn't really appear until somewhere around 80 million years ago, at earliest. So that's a bit odd, and that's during the Campanian stage of the Cretaceous. This animal, however, since just mentioning the length, was somewhere around 15 feet or pushing just around 5 meters and probably weighing up to 1,600 pounds or a little over 700 kilograms.
So that's definitely not one of them.
No, well, it's just that he has a more of a sort of terrestrial type of physiology or anatomy to him. And this is very caiman like. I guess I'm not too familiar with this specific species of caiman. It's quite odd. I almost confused him for a young Purosaurus. I mean, we could look him up real quick. He's an enormous individual. One of the largest crocodilomorphs to exist. Purr, for Asaurus. I know this creature did not purr. Um, but why specifically it was named that, I do not know. However, it was technically the largest species of crocodilomorph to exist after the age of the dinosaurs. So during the Cenozoic era, this is a bit of an overestimate. This was almost like what Deinosuchus was being compared with at different times. And now even that animal has been shrunk down, but not to the same extent as Purosaurus. Yeah, this is another well, this is a bit better when it comes to the overall skull structure, the morphology. Purosaurus is odd. It has a very round type of a skull structure, but a very it's not exactly very robust. This is supposed to represent Deinosuchus hunting in Albertosaurus over in Lake Cretaceous, Alberta, though it could be over Montana during the late Cretaceous around 75 million years ago.
Look,
That's Purosaurus.
well, he looks like he should be purring.
Um, yeah, I mean, he does have a very relaxed look to him. He was likely feeding on different species of large reptile in the area and also probably focusing on different species of mammals. Since he was likely cold blooded, he probably didn't have to feed very often. As long as he had a very large meal in a single instance, then he could probably survive for months without really eating or maybe just having snacks now and then. Well, what I mean by that is just smaller mammals. So that's, I guess, technically not a full several month fast. But this animal could reach somewhere around 27 to 32 feet in length. They're pushing almost 10 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 4 tons, maybe slightly more, and which is virtually the dominant predator in the area that inhabited over in South America. So, this is also a very distant relative to the different species of large crocodilomorphs like Sarcosuchus and Deinosuchus back in the Cretaceous period. With Sarcosuchus also inhabiting Africa around 110 million years ago, and Deinosuchus inhabiting Canada and different parts of the United States around 75 million years ago. Brachiosaurus also didn't have the competition, have to be concerned about different species of theropod dinosaurs. There wasn't really anything there to compete with him except maybe mammalian carnivores when he was younger, and they could quickly pick him off, but
Look,
not full-grown
looks
adults.
like he's smiling.
Yeah, it does. He's just, yeah, staring, probably at whatever mammals in front of him. Was there anything else with that article? So, Stenoscalida aurontiacus is the first proterocampsid from the Varzea do Agudo site, expanding the taxonomic and ecological diversity of this iconic philo- fossiliferous locality. According to the team, the ancient reptile has one of the best preserved hind limbs within the Proterocampsidae family. Um, yeah, that's. But what's unfortunate is that we didn't find any of the skull. It is quite miraculous that we are able to distinguish the different physiological or morphological characteristics of the thigh and the shin bone of this animal and know that's specifically distinct from any other type of proterocampsid or overall archosauromorphs. I wonder what specifically is different about these bones. It's unfortunate it didn't mention that. It also indicates that some typical Archosaurian features evolved earlier than previously thought, although the new species displays traits that unequivocally place it in Proterocampsidae. Stenoscalidae aurontiacus carries a set of unusual hind limb traits within Proterocampsids. I think it is quite similar to other members of the Proterocampsid lineage of Archosauromorphs when looking at those other more skinnier sort of species. And yeah, they always had, or at least when it comes to other species, those very long and thin, narrow snouts. So actually, let's see if we can look one up. The Stenerosuchus. So Stenerosuchus. Didn't pop up. Okay. I'll give you another one. It's a bit of a different lineage. Proterosuchus. So Prerosuchus. So this animal is also from the early Triassic, but possibly a bit earlier in time. So pushing somewhere around 240 million years ago. This is another lineage of the Archosauromorph um, lineage of reptiles, except I don't believe this is a true crocodilomorph. The Proterosuchids were a fascinating, or they are a fascinating group of reptiles. They have very crocodile-like characteristics, however, a very distinct morphology when it comes to their overall skull structure. Considering you have where the upper jaw overlaps with the bottom jaw and is hooked, it is odd as to why many species of piscivorous eating carnivores or fish eaters evolved this sort of a trait, almost to help with grappling the fish that they fed on. This is an instance, I think it's from the book The Guide to Prehistoric Life, which regards all of the creatures in the Walking With series. So, referring to Walking With dinosaurs, beasts, monsters. So, it covers the whole Phanerozoic era. So, about 530 million years. And what they're hunting in this instance is a proto-mammal called Lystrosaurs. Now, the Lystrosaurs were a group of proto-mammals that first evolved during the Permian over 255 million years ago. So the tusked individual in this picture. But they would survive the Permian mass extinction, which is fascinating considering many species of animals did die out during the Permian. Though, when it comes to specifically animals in general, it's not as horrific of the percentage of species that died out as to what many tend to hear. It's usually pushed out there that 85 to over 90% of life on Earth perished. And many did, but you're having to take into account the different species of insects, the amphibians, reptiles, in this case, the proto mammals going extinct, also marine life. What's another thing? And you have to take into account plants, fungi, and bacteria. And so when you narrow it down, it wasn't as bad with many groups of organisms. And so animals like the proto-mammals, such as Lysosaurus, and even different lineages that consisted of the Proterosuchus, did survive because otherwise you wouldn't have the dinosaurs evolve later on, as well as the different species of mammals and crocodile themselves. But what is interesting is that despite this animal being very distantly related to the dinosaurs, I'm not referring to the proto mammal, I'm referring to the Proterosuchus, is that it has a distinct curved upper jaw. And this is something that you find on many species of fish eating dinosaurs, such as the Spinosaurus himself. Spinosaurus has this type of a characteristic. This is also something that you somewhat see in different types of marine reptiles later on. Somewhat of a characteristic that you might find in certain species of nothosaurs, but their skulls tend to be a bit more even, or at least the upper and bottom jaw with each other. Proterosuchus also, when referring to size, somewhere around 12 to 15 feet in length, or pushing 3 to 5 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 1,200 pounds, or a little over 500 kilograms. So, one of the top predators in the area of the Triassic period that it inhabited, different areas of Pangea. So, probably just focusing on different marshes, wetlands, and possibly different river systems as well. And also doing very well in the different dry seasons that occurred in the area. So, thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Let's see. We're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And remember that nothing is